Today we're going to try an open beta game, City Skylines 2 by Paradox Interactive. Today we're going to make a mountain village, and we're going to name it Antville. No, wait. And we're going to name it Ant City Smiley Face. Okay, let's get started. The mountain village map is very scenic, with many mountains and flat land for building. Today we will be using the 529 tiles mod as well as a few other mods which will all be linked in the description below. Alright, so our first order of business was building some roads. It's important to start small or you risk losing all your money. I connected my first transformer station to an outside connection, and also placed a water tower. I then went on to zone some residential and commercial. Next, I looked for the best place to put my sewage outlet pipe. It's important not to place this upstream as it will pollute your river. I chose this spot on the river due to its fast-moving current and distance from the city. I then connected the sewage outlet pipe to the rest of the network. I zoned a little bit of industrial. I then used the road builder mod to build a custom road for my city. I decided to use a custom alley I had used in a different city and built upon it to fit the city's needs. I continued building the city in a grid-like pattern until I got my first achievement. Ant City was now a tiny village. With $25,000 and 1 development point, I was able to really get my city off the ground. The first order of business as a tiny village, raising taxes and building a cemetery. I increased taxes to 12% in order to increase revenue as well as slightly decrease demand as I figure out what to do next. I then built a cemetery to increase happiness and to prepare for dying citizens. I found some fertile land where I wanted to do some textile fiber farming. However, Ant City was not considered a small village yet, so I could not unlock it. So I decided to build a road and leave the plot empty for the future. As day turned to night, I continued building pedestrian pathways and zoning more residential zones. After receiving ample tax revenue from my citizens, I decided to reward them with the medical clinic. I went for the small medical clinic as it was considerably cheaper and was more appropriate for the city's size. I went on to meddle with the city's tax rates, and afterwards, I noticed the medium density had densified. Would you look at that? City growth. As night turned to day, I built another roundabout, expanded my roads even more, and built some medium density residential. I decided to build some forestry industry around the future textile fiber industry while I waited to level up. Ant City then became a small village, giving us $50,000 and 2 development points to mess with. My first attempt failed, but you know City Skylines 2. If you want to delete something, no you didn't. For my second attempt, I moved to the main building to maximize the number of resources I would receive. I then built a very small livestock farm using Anarchy to fill in the space. I went on to use 2 development points for the recycling center, which I placed inside our future industrial sector. Ant City was now a large village, which gives us $75,000 and 3 development points. Our excitement did not last long though, as the city's main water source became overwhelmed and stopped providing water to our citizens. To fix this, I raised the city's water and sewage budget from 50% to 70%, which fixed the issue. I then added a viewing deck to increase the entertainment value of the city, followed by a gravel road. I built some North American medium density residential to increase revenue and the population. I then built a small elementary school. Next, I did some light decorating before realizing I had to increase service revenue even more. To do this, I meddled with the tax rate and the city services budget, as well as used a few development points to unlock advanced road services. I then looked around my city as I waited for Ant City's revenue to return to 6 figures. Keep an eye on this intersection, as it will be a headache for us in the near future. With a booming population and an increase in our monthly revenue, it was time to expand. Using the same custom alley we had used previously, we expanded, using both North American medium density row housing as well as medium density housing. Using the latest patch by Paradox Interactive, we were able to seize property via eminent domain and rehome citizens living in the affected areas, rather than abandoning them at the local park. I then, in a situationally ironic twist, raised taxes for uneducated citizens. While unaware at the time, this caused much of the population to fall below the poverty line. I then built some more North American low-density commercial, followed by more industrial. For no particular reason, I raised the water budget to 80%. I then lowered the budget for police and administration as well as fire and rescue. This would increase revenue and would not impact the city's well-being in the near future. This is where the future police station will go. Note how I build a dedicated road for the future police station. This is a great way to avoid traffic if traffic volume ever increases. I then expanded Ivy Street as well as our industrial area. Remember that headache I told you about? Its impact has finally been realized. Due to financial constraints and poor planning at the start of the game, the main road into the city is now experiencing an overwhelming amount of traffic. For the time being, I ignore this issue and build our first police station instead. Ant City was now a grand village. This gives us $100,000 to work with as well as 4 development points. I then built a second textile fiber farm with which would increase revenue. I increased the water budget to 90% and raised the taxi minimum fare to 50 ant bucks. I then built a city firehouse on a new road. While expensive, this would mark the start of a new portion of the city. I decided to continue building the city on the opposite side of the highway, using bridges to connect the two sides. I built a new park and continued expanding. This new area would be home to a few office buildings. Office buildings are high in demand right now due to the cheaper taxes for higher educated citizens. I also added sidewalks and created low-rent housing in the area. I decided to use some development points to purchase trains. While expensive, trains allow hundreds of citizens to move around the city without creating traffic, increasing happiness. I then went on to split the city into different districts in order to create district-specific policies. The first district? Bruh City. Unfortunately, we could not enact any district-specific policies yet, as we were not considered a tiny town. I decided to let the city grow for a while as I raked in more money from taxes and fees. Then, out of nowhere, I unlocked my first signature building. These buildings are very useful. For example, this building provides +4 well-being within a 1-kilometer radius. I wasn't too sure where to put this building, so I decided to build a park instead. Using a few mods, I connected the 2 pathways in order to create one long park. While observing our headache of an intersection, I noticed many citizens jaywalking into oncoming traffic. Not only is this against the law, it is also very dangerous. I decided to build a few "the crossing tunnel is large" in order to incentivize following the law, which did the trick. I then zoned some low-density commercial buildings. I then built my first train yard, which probably wasn't the best idea, but it meant Ant City was finally considered a tiny town. With this, we were granted 125,000 ant bucks and 5 development points. I then used 2 development points to unlock the fire station. However, I did not have enough money to build the fire station, so I built a small post office instead. To increase mail service coverage, I placed multiple mailboxes around the city. I then added some connecting roads and pedestrian pathways to the Bruh City district to mitigate future congestion. The next order of business was to expand even more. I built a few North American mixed housing and made the new area home to our first signature building. I built an underground pumping station near the industrial area, being careful to avoid ground pollution that may contaminate the water supply. I then built North American mixed housing and residential on Autumn Street that mimicked the North American medium density on the opposite side of the Bruh City district. I then transitioned to North American medium density row housing as I zoned closer to the river. I decided to leave the portion closest to the river unzoned because I was unsure what to place here. I then expanded a road that used underground segments to avoid a farm. I also used 4 development points to purchase highways and parking areas. I then got a bus depot and made our first bus line. This line would connect citizens to the industrial sector, dedicating more of the road to vehicles carrying product rather than a single citizen. I named the line Bruh City Transport in homage to the district the majority of the stops reside in. I wanted to make public transportation the main mode of transport in my city, so I made the cost of a ticket 2 ant bucks. The 2 ant buck rule for a ticket will remain true for all transport in the city to ensure its favorability over cars. I then used the road builder mod to make a train line that was compact, yet allowed citizens to walk to the nearest station with ease. I then used another mod to build a train station using the double train track parentheses track station close parentheses. I built the tracks out to the river and then connected the tracks to the rail yard. While doing so, Ant City became a boom town. This earned us 150,000 ant bucks and 6 development points. I then replaced the double train track parentheses track station close parentheses with a small train station, as an actual station looked nicer and had a higher comfort value than a simple track. The next order of business was connecting the station using a pedestrian pathway and making our first train line into downtown Bruh City. Another train line was created that would bring in citizens moving in from other cities in an effort to reduce congestion caused by mass immigration to Ant City Smiley Face. I named these lines the Bruh City National, or BCN for short, as they were long distance. Train lines that connected to outside cities were charged a 3 ant buck tax due to the long distance nature of the line, as well as a 3 ant bucks tax for use of already congested freight train lines. In order to remain competitive in our region, Ant City built a cargo train terminal, which allowed businesses to sell their product in a manner that was considerably easier than using trucks. It also allowed for product to be imported without using the main highway into the city, reducing congestion. This concludes our first report of Ant City Smiley Face. This boomtown has an increasing population of around 6.8 thousand residents with a treasury of around 214,000 ant bucks. Demand in the region is high and overall happiness is at an acceptable level. This report was observed on the 18th of October, prior to major updates introduced by Paradox Interactive in the following weeks. Subsequent reports are in the works. Ant City residents may leave their thoughts below. Our team will accept all public input in order to further understand the state of the region. The board will convene again soon. Have a good rest of the day.